slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Hey team, today's topic I wanted to go over Boston Marathon preparedness. And I know a lot of you have run the Boston Marathon. I personally have known a lot of distance runners, including my wife who ran the Boston Marathon. And so I do have some background with this particular event. Without a doubt, if you want to be prepared properly to handle the Boston Marathon course, you want to be training on those hills, you know, the Newton Hills and the other undulations throughout that course. If you're training specifically on flat surfaces all the time, it's going to be tough to be able to compete at a very high level on the Boston Marathon course. Now, of course, if you live in Nebraska, or if you live in Kansas, or if you live in a location that is just, or in Florida, places in other parts of the world, maybe the Netherlands, places that are really notoriously flat, you can still run and be very competitive at the Boston Marathon, because again, if you're training at paces that are significantly faster than your goal Boston Marathon race pace that you're aiming for, then you're going to set yourself up for success. The key thing is to focus on a longer buildup for the Boston Marathon. Okay, do not do an 8-week buildup and think that you're going to be 100% ready for the Boston Marathon course. One, you have to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and the standards continue to get more difficult in these major races now. I mean, we saw recently Chicago just changed their standards, and they're very, very tough. They're getting to a point where you really have to be at your A game and to be extremely physically and mentally fit in order to compete in these bigger races. So I always tell runners, if you're going to train for the Boston Marathon or any marathon race, these longer races, focus on a minimum of 16 weeks, but aim for 6 months, okay, 24 weeks. That gives you plenty of time to properly prepare. In some cases, there are runners such as myself who have been away from the sport competing for several years. Okay, in my case, I haven't ran a race, a marathon, in over 10 years. Okay, so now I'm training for the Valencia Marathon in December, and so it's taking me several years to get back to a point where I'm running consistent mileage. Okay, so you have to think long term if you want to do well in the marathon, especially the marathon distance. Okay, you can still get in great, phenomenal race shape for, say, a 1,500 or maybe a 5,000, even a 10,000 in, say, 12 weeks. Okay, but a marathon, in a lot of cases, it really takes between 6 months to a year to really get it right. So the Boston Marathon preparedness, if you want to do it right, make sure you're thinking long term. Make sure you're thinking outside the box. Okay, in the marathon distance, especially with the Boston Marathon, the majority of that course it's a net downhill course, but there are a lot of hills on it. And even though I have not run the Boston Marathon, I have run a course that's very similar to it, which is the California International Marathon that takes place in December in Sacramento, California each year. In those particular races, you have to make sure that you're very aware of your energy expenditure in the race, especially in the early stages of a race like the Boston Marathon, which is gradual downhill. And especially with Boston, that first like 5K to 5 miles is downhill. I mean, there's a lot of downhill sections. So it's very easy, very natural to go out way too fast, way too aggressive in the early stages of that particular race and get caught up in running someone else's race. Okay, so in your Boston Marathon preparedness, make sure that you're practicing your pacing in training. Practice going, do some faster long runs. Don't get in the habit of running slow every weekend. Build that endurance, build that stamina that you're going to need in the Boston Marathon, okay? But also make sure that you pay attention to running long, slow, and easy for long periods of time as well, okay? If you're training for the Boston Marathon or any marathon, you want to go further than 16 miles for your long run, okay? They're going 12 to 14 miles, of course, you're going to build an enormous amount of strength and endurance going that distance, training for a marathon. But in these major races, these highly competitive races that you actually have to go in and you have to qualify for, in order to get a Boston Marathon qualifier, you have to make sure that you're staying consistent with your long runs, and that those long runs are between 18 miles to 23 miles in length, and even sometimes further than the marathon distance. So maybe like 27 miles or 28 miles in length. Of course, you're not going to be doing that quickly. It's going to take time. You have to first adapt to doing, say, a 10 mile or 16 kilometer run, and then moving it to 14 miles, and then moving it to 17 to 18 miles. Gradual build up as you lead into your training. Other things I want you paying attention to as you earn that Boston Marathon qualifier first is running the tangents in the race. Okay, a lot of runners are not paying attention to this. They're running they're running too much distance. And you want to minimize the amount of, not only the amount of energy expenditure that you're dealing with in the race, and making sure that you're pacing yourself correctly, but also running the least amount of distance as you can in the Boston Marathon. So what I say is just make sure that if you have a left-hand turn coming up, get to the left-hand side of the road. Don't run to the far right of the road. And in most cases, even if you're running in the middle of the road and you're running in a group, you're running behind a group, that's the way to do it. Because again, you're minimizing the amount of energy you're expending in the race, and you're drafting off those other runners. That doesn't mean you draft off the runners the entire race. Sometimes you're going to have to make a move, and if you're running in a group and they're running too slow and you feel strong and you feel ready, make sure that you make your move and be decisive when you make that move. Okay, but run the tangents, run the least amount of distance. So get to the far left of the road if there's a left-hand turn coming up, and vice versa. Okay, training at paces that you know you're not going to be able to handle in the marathon distance in training is key. You want to make sure that you're improving your body's lactate tolerance, and to run the Boston Marathon effectively and to slow down less than your competition, you have to get in the habit of doing one VO2 max workout a week. VO2 max is your maximum oxygen uptake. That is running so fast that you simply cannot clear lactic acid faster than it's building up. So naturally, you'll have to stop, take some, a few seconds to a few minutes rest in between each one of your intervals. But training at, say, down to 3K to 5K race pace, often, once a week, sometimes even twice a week, training for the Boston Marathon is going to get that race pace, or whatever your goal Boston Marathon race pace is, it's going to get that pace to feel easier for you. And you're going to be able to sustain that race pace longer. You're going to be able to clear lactic acid more effectively, more efficiently in the race. And you're going to be more confident. You're going to be less stressed that you can handle the pace you're aiming for the Boston Marathon. Okay? Hydration in the race is absolutely essential. If you're not drinking enough in the Boston Marathon or any race you're preparing for, if you're not training to handle how much fluid your body can take in training and during your long runs, get in the habit of doing that. Because if you don't stay in the habit of drinking during your long runs, you're going to have a hard time being able to start and finish the Boston Marathon in record time. Your body needs those calories. Your body needs that hydration. Far too many runners make the mistake, myself included in my early experiences of running the marathon, are not drinking enough in the race, and they're not taking in those gels. You're not taking enough calories that go right into your bloodstream when you take those gels. So taking between 4 to 5 gels throughout the race is absolutely key, along with your fluid. So practice that in your long runs. Drop your water bottles out every 5K or every 3 miles. Drop a gel, or get a pair of shorts where you can have a couple gels in your shorts where you can ingest those calories during your long runs, so that when you get to the Boston Marathon, you will have practiced that over and over again. Now, of course, in any Boston Marathon preparedness tactic and strategy, you have to make sure first you earn that Boston Marathon qualifying standard. So find a race. Maybe it's local, maybe it's somewhere else around the world, that is flat, a course like Rotterdam, a course like Valencia, Berlin, Chicago, Columbus. There's numerous examples of this. So find a course that's going to be conducive to you first getting that Boston Marathon qualifying standard so that you qualify. Then you go into the Boston Marathon with a 16 to 24 week buildup, preferably 20 to 24 weeks. I've created training plans on RunDreamAchieve.com specifically for those athletes that are aiming for those longer build-ups. I do have 20 to 24 week marathon training plans. If you're looking for training plans, if you're looking for a running course, ebooks, or running coaching, definitely check out the resources below these videos as well as on RunDreamAchieve.com. I hope this video on some things you'll want you thinking about in terms of your own Boston Marathon preparedness has been helpful for you. And if you have any other questions, feel free to leave me a comment below. I'll definitely reach back out to you. Please like and share these videos. I really appreciate that. Helps more runners around the world to see these videos, and obviously helps with the YouTube algorithm. So thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.